a name once whispered behind closed doors, now carved into the annals of Australia's outlaw lore. A repeat sexual offender with 3 known assaults. Troy's story is soaked in betrayal and blood.
Troy Mercanti didn't just join the outlaw world, he conquered it. From a quiet Perth kid to Australia's most feared biker president, his story reads like a thriller. Betrayal, revenge, shootouts, and survival, Troy built an empire on blood and fury.
Others said he wanted control, a way to steer his life in a world that offered no direction. Either way, one thing was clear. He refused to live a normal life, and that choice would shape everything that followed. He didn't just grow up, he transformed. From a quiet kid in the Perth suburbs to a central figure in Western Australia's most savage biker war.
But every king eventually faces his reckoning. This is the untold story of how one man's hunger for power turned him into a legend and a target. A legend across multiple clubs. Few figures in the international motorcycle club scene have a story as unique as Troy Mercanti. While most notorious motorcycle club members built their reputations within a single organization, Mercanti's legend spans multiple clubs, countries, and decades. His journey from Australia's Club de Rose to the Coffin Cheaters, then to the Finks, and finally to the Mongols, represents something almost unheard of in the typically loyal world of motorcycle clubs. A man who not only switched patches multiple times, but rose to prominence in each organization. In the tightly knit world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, loyalty to one's colors is considered sacrosanct. Members frequently tattoo their club's insignia permanently on their bodies, a physical manifestation of their lifelong commitment. The motto "in this life and the next" isn't merely rhetorical, it's a binding oath that few dare to break. Those who do are typically met with violent retribution, ostracized from the brotherhood they once called family, or worse. Yet Troy Mercanti has not only survived multiple club transitions, but has thrived, becoming more influential with each move. This 54-year-old Western Australian has cemented his position as one of the most notorious figures in Australia's motorcycle club scene. His ability to navigate the complex politics of rival organizations speaks to an exceptional combination of personal charisma, strategic thinking, and the kind of fearsome reputation that gives even the most hardened bikers pause. In a world governed by strict codes of honor and loyalty, Mercanti has somehow managed to rewrite the rules without paying the ultimate price. What makes his story particularly compelling is not just his survival after transitions that would have meant death for less influential bikers. It's his continued relevance and power across decades. In February 2021, his public profile reached new heights when the West Australian newspaper published what they described as the very first formal interview Troy Mercanti has ever given to the media. This unprecedented break from the traditional code of silence offered rare insights into the thinking of a man who had seen the motorcycle club world from multiple perspectives. Early life, the making of an outlaw.
Troy Mercanti enters a world that would shape him into one of Australia's most notorious figures in outlaw motorcycle history. Growing up in Perth's sprawling suburbs wasn't exactly a breeding ground for infamy. But from the start, young Troy showed signs of being different. Some say he was hungry for more: respect, authority, dominance. Others saw a kid who'd seen too much, wanting control of his own destiny, in a world that offered little direction. Ever wonder what shapes a man like this? The journey from Perth nobody to the face of Western Australia's most infamous bikie wars didn't happen overnight. It was a path carved through determination, violence, and an unquenchable thirst.
Troy Mercanti was born in Western Australia in the late 1960s, coming of age during a period when Australia's motorcycle club culture was experiencing significant expansion and transformation. Little is publicly known about his family background or early childhood, a deliberate obscurity typical of those who rise to prominence in the outlaw motorcycle world. This intentional separation between public identity and private origins serves both protective and mythological functions, allowing figures like Mercanti to craft personas largely defined by their club affiliations rather than their personal histories. The Australia of Mercanti's youth was undergoing substantial social and cultural shifts. The post-Vietnam era saw a growing disillusionment with authority and traditional social structures, creating fertile ground for countercultural movements, including motorcycle clubs. Western Australia's vast geography and relatively isolated urban centres offered particular appeal for those seeking to establish lives outside mainstream social constraints. Perth in the 1980s, when Mercanti would have been in his formative teenage years, had developed a vibrant motorcycle scene. The city's isolation, it remains one of the most geographically isolated major cities in the world, fostered a frontier mentality and self-reliance that aligned well with biker culture's emphasis on brotherhood and internal governance. For a young man seeking identity and belonging, the tight-knit world of motorcycle enthusiasts offered both. While specific details of Mercanti's introduction to motorcycle culture remain private, the pathway typically involves early fascination with motorcycles themselves, followed by casual association with established riders, and eventually formal introduction to club members. This gradual integration process allows both prospective members and established clubs to evaluate compatibility before committing to the significant step of prospecting for membership. By the late 1980s, as Australia's motorcycle club scene was becoming increasingly organised and hierarchical, Mercanti was positioning himself to become part of this world. The transition from motorcycle enthusiast to club prospect represents a significant life decision, one that would ultimately set Mercanti on a path to becoming one of Australia's most notorious outlaw bikers. What distinguishes Mercanti from many other figures in Australia's outlaw motorcycle scene is his unusual trajectory across multiple clubs, a rarity in a culture where club loyalty is typically paramount. His journey from the Coffin Cheaters to the Finks and later to the Mongols Motorcycle Club demonstrates not just personal ambition, but also the complex internal politics of these organizations. Mercanti's rise to prominence coincided with increasing law enforcement attention to outlaw motorcycle clubs across Australia. His career spans a period when these clubs were transitioning from primarily social organizations with criminal elements to more sophisticated operations with interests in various illicit markets. This evolution brought heightened scrutiny from police and politicians alike, culminating in various legislative efforts specifically targeting motorcycle clubs. The saga of Troy Mercanti offers a window into Australia's unique motorcycle club culture. The vast distances between Australian cities allowed distinctive regional club characteristics to develop, with Perth's isolation contributing to particularly strong brotherhood bonds among its motorcycle community. Mercanti navigated this landscape with notable success, maintaining his status despite shifts between rival organizations. The beginning, Club de Rose and the making of a reputation.
The late 90s brought change, hard change, the kind that separates the weekend warriors from the true believers. And Troy Mercanti, he was proving himself with every passing day. Ever been to the Geisha Bar in Northbridge? Back in those days, it was more than just another watering hole. It was where reputations were made and broken. By '97, Mercanti's reputation was growing faster than a Harley at full throttle. Think about what it takes to rise through the ranks of an outfit like the Coffin Cheaters. You don't get there by playing nice. Every promotion is earned in blood, sweat, and unwavering loyalty. The club demanded everything, and Mercanti gave it all. Street fights turned to organized showdowns. Bar brawls became tactical operations. In January 2005, a confrontation with the Scorpion Boys at Metro City nightclub left Mercanti stabbed and slashed. But here's the kicker. His opponent, Nabil Dabag, took 5 bullets in the showdown. The lifestyle came with a price. By 2007, Mercanti's name was becoming synonymous with Perth's underworld. A 26-year-old's broken jaw at the Geisha Bar added another chapter to his growing legend. Police scrutiny intensified. Every move was watched, every association noted. You want to know what makes a man tick in this world? It's not just about the violence, it's about respect.
McCanty was then sent to jail over this assault at a Northbridge nightclub. While serving time, he was sentenced to another 12 months for refusing to answer questions from the Australian Crime Commission. They related to the theft of thousands of dollars from trust funds for the daughters of 2 murdered bikies from his former club.
He's done 2 decent stretches in jail, 2 years because of this. That's him knocking out a bloke at Geisha Bar at 5 in the morning.
The kind of influence that makes hardened men think twice before crossing you. And by the mid-2000s, McCanty had it all. But brothers, let me tell you something about power. It's a double-edged sword. The higher you climb, the harder they come at you. February 2008 proved that point when 12 to 15 of his own Coffin Cheater comrades put him in the hospital. The winds of change were blowing. The club was strong, but McCanty, he was looking for something different, something bigger, the kind of ambition that makes men nervous. By 2008, whispers started circulating, the sort of whispers that make old friends reach for their guns and new enemies start plotting. Remember this, in the outlaw world, change isn't just about switching patches, it's about survival, evolution. And McCanty was about to make a move that would shake the entire Australian biker scene to its core.
Troy McCanty began his biker life with the Club de Rose in Western Australia, where he quickly established himself as a force to be reckoned with. The Club de Rose, founded in Perth in 1971, were among the dominant motorcycle clubs in Western Australia during the 1990s when McCanty joined their ranks. This period marked a significant expansion of motorcycle club activity throughout Australia, as clubs that had once been primarily focused on the motorcycle lifestyle began to develop more sophisticated organisational structures and business interests. Western Australia's vast geography and relatively isolated population centres created an environment where motorcycle clubs could establish strong territorial presences with less immediate friction than in the more densely populated eastern states. For an ambitious young man looking to make his mark in this world, the Club de Rose offered both brotherhood and opportunity. The process of joining an established motorcycle club like the de Rose follows well-established traditions. Prospective members typically begin as hang-arounds, allowed to associate with the club without formal standing. Those who demonstrate loyalty and value may be elevated to prospect status, a probationary period during which they must prove their worth through service to patched members and the club's interests. This probationary period can last from months to years, with prospects subjected to constant evaluation by full members. McCanty's physical attributes made him an immediate asset to the club. Standing well over 6 feet tall with a powerful build, his imposing presence alone commanded respect. But it was more than just his physicality that set him apart. Associates from this period describe a man with natural leadership qualities, decisive, strategic, and unwavering in his commitment to the club's interests. These characteristics quickly moved him up from prospect to patched member and into positions of increasing responsibility. The motorcycle club world of the 1990s was changing rapidly from its origins in post-World War II California. What had begun as loose associations of motorcycle enthusiasts had evolved into highly organized, hierarchical structures with strict codes of conduct and sophisticated business operations. Members like McCanty, who could navigate both the traditional aspects of club life, brotherhood, loyalty, and riding, while also understanding the more complex financial and political dimensions of modern club operations, became increasingly valuable. During McCanty's time with the Club de Rose, the club was one of the big 4 motorcycle clubs dominating Western Australia's biker scene, alongside the Gypsy Jokers, God's Garbage, and the Coffin Cheaters. This concentration of power among 4 major clubs created a unique dynamic in Perth's motorcycle club culture. In fact, these 4 clubs had previously demonstrated their collective influence in 1989, when they combined forces to violently eject the New Zealand-based street gang, the Mongol mob, which was attempting to establish itself in Perth. His early years with the Club de Rose saw him develop the reputation for unflinching loyalty and effectiveness that would later enable his unprecedented club transitions. While the specifics of his activities during this period remain largely unknown to the public, his rising profile with law enforcement suggests involvement in the kind of operations that typically draw police attention to club members: protection rackets, drug distribution, and territorial enforcement. The secretive nature of clubs like the Delerto meant that Mercanti's early activities remained largely hidden from public view, but his later notoriety with law enforcement and eventual rise to prominence within multiple clubs suggests that his formative years with the Delerto provided the foundation for his subsequent career in Australia's outlaw motorcycle world. The Geisha Bar incident, cementing a fearsome reputation.
Ever been to the Geisha Bar in Northbridge back then? It wasn't just another spot to grab a beer. It was a proving ground, a place where names were made and broken. By 1997, Troy's name was growing faster than a Harley with the throttle wide open, rising through the ranks of a crew like the Coffin Cheaters. You don't do that by playing it safe. Every step up is earned the hard way, with blood, sweat, and blind loyalty. The club demanded everything. Troy gave it all. Fistfights on the street turned into full-blown tactical brawls. Bar scraps started to feel more like military ops. In January 2005, a clash with the Scorpion Boys at Metro City nightclub left Troy sliced up and bleeding. But get this, his rival, Nabil the Beast Diab, walked away with 5 bullets in him. This life doesn't hand out wins for free. By 2007, Troy's name was ringing out across Perth's criminal scene. Another violent incident at the Geisha Bar left a 26-year-old with a busted jaw and added more fuel to Troy's growing legend. Cops were all over him.
Already known to law enforcement, Mercanti's profile rose significantly after a violent incident at Perth's Geisha Bar in 1997, which resulted in the death of a security guard. Though Mercanti wasn't directly responsible for the death, the incident cemented his fearsome image in Australia's biker scene. The Geisha Bar, a popular night spot in Perth's entertainment district, became the scene of what Western Australian media would later describe as one of the most notorious biker-related public disturbances in the state's history. According to court records and media reports from the time, the incident began when Mercanti and several other Club Delerto members were denied entry to the establishment. What started as a verbal confrontation quickly escalated into physical violence. In the ensuing melee, security staff and Club Delerto members exchanged blows both inside and outside the venue. The chaotic scene spilled onto the street, drawing attention from nearby police and bystanders. By the time the confrontation ended, multiple individuals had sustained injuries, and most critically, a 26-year-old security guard had suffered injuries that would ultimately prove fatal. The subsequent investigation led to criminal charges against several Club Delerto members. Court proceedings eventually determined that while Mercanti had been a central figure in the altercation, he had not delivered the specific blow that caused the security guard's death. Nevertheless, his prominent role in the incident significantly elevated his profile both within the club world and with law enforcement. The fallout from the Geisha Bar incident rippled through Perth's nightlife scene and the broader community. Local media coverage focused intensely on the growing presence of motorcycle clubs in the city's entertainment districts, with Mercanti's name featuring prominently in reporting. Police response included increased surveillance of club activities and members, with Mercanti now firmly established as a person of significant interest. For venues throughout Perth, the incident sparked a widespread re-evaluation of security protocols when dealing with known club members. Many establishments implemented informal policies of refusing entry to individuals wearing club colours or known to be affiliated with motorcycle organisations, practices that would later be formalised through legislation. Perhaps most importantly for his future trajectory, the incident enhanced his standing within the club world. The willingness to engage in violent confrontation when the club's honour was at stake, particularly in such a public setting, demonstrated a commitment to the values that underpin motorcycle club culture. For a man who would later make unprecedented moves between rival organisations, establishing this foundation of respect early in his career proved crucial. The months following the Geisha Bar incident saw Mercanti's influence within the Club Delerto increase substantially. His handling of police attention, media scrutiny, and internal club politics during this period demonstrated a sophistication beyond the typical enforcer role. These qualities, physical intimidation combined with strategic thinking and political acumen, would become hallmarks of his approach throughout his unusual career. The unthinkable, patching over to the Coffin Cheaters.
The Coffin Cheaters MC was founded in Perth, Australia in 1970, starting as a car club before becoming one of the most feared 1% clubs in the country. They weren't like others. In 1989, a war broke out against the Mongol mob, a brutal street gang trying to gain ground in Perth. So the Coffin Cheaters joined forces with 3 other clubs, the Gypsy Jokers MC, Club the Rose MC, and God's Garbage MC. The battle turned into a bloodbath with grenades, sawed-off shotguns, and homemade bombs lighting up the streets. This wasn't just beef, it was urban warfare. After defeating the Mongol mob, the Coffin Cheaters solidified their hold on Western Australia and expanded overseas, planning chapters in South Africa and Norway. Today their name still rings bells, not just for how they ride, but how they went to war and came out legends.
In a move that shocked many in the motorcycle world, Mercanti later patched over to the Coffin Cheaters, traditional rivals of his former club. This transition demonstrated both his influence and his willingness to break even the most sacred rules of biker culture. Switching clubs, especially to join rivals, typically results in violent retaliation from former brothers who view such moves as the ultimate betrayal. In the closely codified world of motorcycle clubs, loyalty to one's colors is considered inviolable. Patches are not merely organizational insignia, they represent a lifelong commitment to a specific brotherhood. Members typically surrender their colors only in death or disgrace, with the latter often leading to forcible removal of club tattoos, a process as painful symbolically as it is physically. The Coffin Cheaters Motorcycle Club, founded in Perth in 1970, represented one of Western Australia's oldest and most established motorcycle clubs. By the time of Mercanti's controversial transition, they had developed a significant presence throughout Australia, with chapters in multiple states and a reputation for fierce defense of their territories and interests. As traditional rivals of the Club de Rose, they would normally be considered off-limits for a former de Rose member seeking new affiliations. That Mercanti survived this transition speaks volumes about his reputation and connections. Several theories have circulated within Australia's biker community about how he managed this seemingly impossible feat. Some suggest he maintained enough respect from his former club through his years of loyal service that they granted him a rare good leave, permission to depart without violent consequences. Others believe his connections to organized crime figures outside the club structure provided him protection during the vulnerable period of transition. The most likely explanation combines elements of both theories along with Mercanti's personal charisma and strategic foresight. By the time of his departure from the Club de Rose, he had established himself as someone with significant value to any organization he joined, bringing with him not just his personal capabilities, but also a network of connections throughout Western Australia's criminal underworld. For the Coffin Cheaters, accepting Mercanti despite his history with a rival club demonstrated both his perceived value and the evolving nature of club politics in Australia during this period. Traditional rivalries were beginning to give way to more pragmatic alliances based on mutual benefit, particularly in the face of increasing law enforcement pressure. The successful transition between rival clubs established a pattern that would define Mercanti's unusual career: the ability to move between traditionally closed communities while maintaining the respect necessary to rise to positions of influence within each. This capacity to transcend the normally rigid boundaries of club loyalty would eventually enable his most dramatic transition, from the Coffin Cheaters to the internationally notorious Mongols MC. Rising through the ranks, prominence with the Coffin Cheaters. His time with the Coffin Cheaters saw him rise to greater prominence, becoming one of the most recognizable motorcycle club members in Australia. Media outlets regularly featured his name in coverage of biker activities, and law enforcement considered him a significant figure in Western Australia's club scene. His influence extended beyond his immediate chapter, with connections throughout the country's motorcycle club world. The late 1990s and early 2000s marked a period of significant transformation for Australia's motorcycle clubs. What had once been primarily local organizations were increasingly developing national structures with sophisticated communication networks and business operations. The Coffin Cheaters were at the forefront of this evolution, with chapters across multiple states and growing international connections. Mercanti's role within this expanding organization grew accordingly. His reputation for effective handling of both internal discipline and external threats made him valuable to the club's leadership. While specific details of his activities during this period remain largely private, the increasing attention he received from specialized police units suggests his responsibilities extended well beyond the typical member's duties. Within the hierarchy of the Coffin Cheaters, Mercanti reportedly held various leadership positions, including Sergeant-at-Arms, the officer responsible for maintaining discipline and security within the club. This role perfectly suited his combination of physical intimidation and strategic thinking, allowing him to shape club operations while enforcing internal codes of conduct. His rising prominence brought with it increased scrutiny from law enforcement. Australia's various state police forces had established specialized task forces focused specifically on motorcycle clubs, with officers dedicated to monitoring the activities of high-profile members like Mercanti. This constant surveillance created a cat-and-mouse dynamic, with club business requiring increasingly sophisticated methods to avoid detection. This period also saw significant changes in how Australian media covered motorcycle club activities. The sensationalist coverage of the late 1980s and early 1990s was giving way to more nuanced reporting that recognized the complex organizational structures and business interests of these groups. Mercanti's name appeared with increasing frequency, often described as a high-ranking member or influential figure within the Coffin Cheaters. His rising profile brought challenges as well as benefits. Increased police surveillance meant his movements were closely monitored, his associates scrutinized, and his business interests subjected to regulatory attention. Navigating this environment required more than just traditional biker toughness. It demanded a sophisticated understanding of legal boundaries and business practices. Throughout this period, Mercanti demonstrated an exceptional ability to adapt to these changing circumstances. While maintaining the fearsome personal reputation established during his years with the Club de Rose, he also developed the political skills necessary to operate effectively within an increasingly complex organizational structure. This combination of traditional biker values and modern business acumen would serve him well in his future endeavors. The dramatic fall from Coffin Cheater to Mongol. But Mercanti's club hopping didn't end there. After a reported falling out with the Coffin Cheaters, allegedly including a severe beating at the hands of his former brothers, Mercanti made his most dramatic move yet. He joined the Mongols MC, helping establish and strengthen the American-founded club's presence in Australia. The circumstances surrounding Mercanti's departure from the Coffin Cheaters remain contentious, with multiple narratives circulating within Australia's biker community. The most widely accepted account involves a severe physical altercation with other high-ranking members over club business decisions. According to this version of events, Mercanti was on the losing end of the confrontation, suffering injuries serious enough to require hospitalization. The precise nature of the disagreement that led to this violent separation is less clear. Some accounts suggest disputes over territory and business operations, while others point to personal conflicts with other influential members. What seems certain is that the rupture was significant enough to make continued membership impossible, a rare circumstance for someone of Mercanti's stature within the organization. For most men, such a violent ejection from a club would mark the end of their motorcycle club career. The combination of physical injuries, loss of status, and the stigma of having been forced out would typically render them persona non grata throughout the biker world. That Mercanti not only survived this setback, but managed to reinvent himself with an even more notorious organization speaks to his exceptional resilience and strategic thinking. The period between his departure from the Coffin Cheaters and emergence with the Mongols represents one of the more mysterious chapters in Mercanti's story. During this time, he is believed to have maintained connections with underground figures outside the club structure who provided both protection and opportunities to rebuild his position within the biker world. His ability to leverage these relationships during a period of vulnerability demonstrates the breadth of his influence beyond any single organization. His transition to the Mongols MC came at a pivotal moment in the American club's international expansion. Founded in Montebello, California in 1969, the Mongols had grown from their origins as a primarily Hispanic American club to become a global organization with chapters across multiple continents. Their arrival in Australia represented a significant shift in the country's motorcycle club landscape, introducing an international player with substantial resources and a fearsome reputation. For the Mongols, establishing a strong Australian presence required individuals with deep knowledge of the local scene and the personal reputation to attract members. Despite his recent setbacks, Mercanti represented an ideal candidate for this role. His experience with two of Western Australia's most established clubs gave him invaluable insights into their operations, territories, and membership. His personal reputation, both for physical toughness and strategic thinking, made him someone other bikers would follow. Most importantly, his recent falling out with the Coffin Cheaters gave him a powerful motivation to help establish a rival organization. The alignment between Mercanti's personal interests and the Mongols' strategic goals created a partnership that would significantly alter Australia's motorcycle club landscape. With Mercanti's guidance and connections, the Mongols would soon establish a formidable presence through one of the most ambitious expansion moves in Australian biker history. The Mongols MC, from California to global phenomenon.
One club stands out from the notorious one-percenters amidst the roar of motorcycle engines and rebellious environment: the Mongols Motorcycle Club. But what exactly makes them the baddest of the bunch? The Mongols MC was founded in 1969 as a one-percenter group in California. Today, they have chapters in more than 14 U.S. states and branches all over the world. Is it the Mongols' global influence or their considerable size that really makes them notorious?
To understand the significance of Mercanti's role in the Mongols' Australian expansion, it's essential to appreciate the club's history and international standing. The Mongols Motorcycle Club was formed in Montebello, California on December 5, 1969, with 10 founding members, the majority of whom were Vietnam veterans. The first national president of the Mongols, Louis Costello, named the club in honor of Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire, selecting imagery that would represent their fierce warrior ethos. The club's origin story reflects the complex social dynamics of post-Vietnam America. Founded in Montebello, California in 1969, the Mongols began with a predominantly Hispanic membership at a time when many motorcycle clubs restricted membership based on race. This origin as an alternative for riders excluded from other organizations helped shape the club's identity and culture. The Vietnam veterans that formed the early core of the Mongols quickly turned the club from a ragtag collection of riders into a tightly organized unit run with the same regimented nature and discipline they'd experienced in Vietnam. Within just 5 years of its creation, chapters had sprung up across the United States, and the club's expansion would eventually reach international proportions. The club's distinctive patch, featuring a brawny Genghis Khan-like figure riding a chopper while brandishing a sword, became recognized internationally as the emblem of one of America's most notorious motorcycle clubs. The US government has made multiple attempts to force the Mongols to forfeit their rights to this trademarked logo, viewing the patch as a significant element of the club's identity and cohesion. By the early 2000s, the Mongols had established chapters throughout North America and were beginning international expansion into Europe, Australia, and parts of Asia. This growth reflected a broader trend of American motorcycle clubs extending their reach globally, creating international networks united by common symbols, traditions, and organizational structures. The club's international expansion strategy typically involved one of two approaches: establishing entirely new chapters in territories without existing Mongols' presence, or the more dramatic process of patching over existing clubs, convincing entire chapters of established organizations to trade their colors for the Mongols' patch. This latter approach offered the advantage of instant membership with established territories, business operations, and local knowledge. The Mongols' notorious reputation stems not just from their size, but from their frequent conflicts with rival organizations, particularly the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. This rivalry, which has resulted in numerous violent incidents across multiple countries, enhanced the Mongols' standing as one of the most formidable outlaw motorcycle clubs in the world. For established Australian bikers looking to strengthen their position against local rivals, affiliation with such a powerful international organization offered significant advantages. By the time Mercanti became involved with the organization in the early 2010s, the Mongols had evolved from their California origins into a global entity with chapters throughout North America, Europe, and increasingly Australia and Asia. This international expansion reflected broader trends in motorcycle club evolution, as organizations originally defined by specific geographic and cultural contexts adapted to increasingly globalized criminal networks and opportunities. The Historic Patchover, building the Australian Mongols. Mercanti became instrumental in one of the largest patchovers in Australian history, when Finks chapters across the country became Mongols overnight in 2013. This final transition completed a journey almost unheard of in motorcycle club circles, having been patched members of 3 major organizations. The concept of a patchover represents one of the most significant events in motorcycle club culture. Rather than recruiting individual members, a patchover involves an entire chapter or club surrendering their existing colors and adopting those of another organization. This process typically occurs when a smaller or less established club seeks the protection and prestige of associating with a larger international organization, or when a club faces existential threats from law enforcement or rival organizations. In Australia, the Finks Motorcycle Club had established a significant presence since their founding in Adelaide in the 1960s. By the early 2000s and 10s, they faced increasing pressure from both law enforcement and rival clubs. The introduction of anti-bikie legislation in various Australian states had created an increasingly hostile operating environment, with new powers allowing police to restrict members' movements, criminalize association between known members, and target club assets. Against this backdrop, alignment with an international organization like the Mongols offered several strategic advantages. It provided access to a global support network, enhanced prestige through association with one of the world's most notorious clubs, and potentially offered new business opportunities through international connections. For the Mongols, the patchover represented an instant expansion of their Australian presence, gaining established territories and experienced members familiar with local conditions. Mercanti's role in facilitating this historic patchover demonstrated his exceptional political skills and influence within Australia's biker community. Convincing entire chapters of an established club to surrender their identities required not just persuasion, but practical demonstrations of the benefits such a move would bring. His personal story, rising from the ashes of his ejection from the Coffin Cheaters to a position of prominence within an internationally respected organization, provided a powerful example of the opportunities the Mongols could offer. The logistics of the patchover itself represented a significant operational challenge. Coordinating the simultaneous transition of multiple chapters across Australia's vast geography required careful planning and execution. Security concerns were paramount, as the period of transition represented a moment of vulnerability when both law enforcement and rival clubs might attempt to exploit the situation. That the operation proceeded with minimal disruption speaks to the effectiveness of Mercanti's planning and the respect his reputation commanded. The successful patchover dramatically altered Australia's motorcycle club landscape. Overnight, the Mongols went from a minor presence to a major player with chapters in multiple states. Traditional power balances between established Australian clubs were disrupted, forcing adaptations and realignments throughout the community. Law enforcement agencies, already concerned about the growing sophistication of motorcycle club operations, now faced the additional challenge of an American club with global resources establishing a significant Australian presence. For Mercanti personally, the successful integration of the Finks into the Mongols represented the culmination of his remarkable journey through Australia's club scene. Having begun with the Club de Rose, moved to the Coffin Cheaters, and now helped establish the Mongols as a major force, he had achieved something unprecedented in the typically rigid world of motorcycle club loyalty. This final transition cemented his reputation as one of the most influential and adaptable figures in Australian biker history. Legal troubles and resilience, the prison years and beyond.
Troy Mercanti, a prominent figure within the Mongols Motorcycle Club, has been granted bail after he spent a weekend in custody on severe sexual assault allegations. Following which the law enforcement authorities have disclosed the possibility of additional charges being brought against him. Perth bikie Troy Mercanti was granted bail on Monday 6 May 2024, after being accused of raping and assaulting a woman after meeting her on a night out at the Metro City nightclub in Northbridge last week. The 56-year-old appeared in Perth Magistrates Court via video link from Hakea Prison, where it was also revealed a second woman has gone to police since his public arrest on Thursday 2 May 2024, also accusing the Mongols boss of a separate sexual assault.
Throughout his biker career, Mercanti has faced numerous legal troubles, including a highly publicized conviction for assaulting his former partner, which resulted in a significant prison sentence. His time behind bars did little to diminish his status, however, another testament to his unusual resilience and standing in the motorcycle club world. The assault case represented one of the most public chapters in Mercanti's controversial life. Court records detail a pattern of domestic violence that culminated in injuries serious enough to warrant significant criminal charges. Unlike his activities within the club world, which remained largely shielded from public scrutiny, this case played out in the full glare of media attention. The resulting prison sentence removed him from active participation in club activities for several years. The case attracted particular public interest, not just because of Mercanti's notorious reputation, but because it offered rare insights into his personal life outside the club context. Media coverage highlighted the contradiction between the loyalty and brotherhood valued within motorcycle club culture and the violence directed toward a domestic partner. This juxtaposition contributed to ongoing public debates about the romanticization of outlaw motorcycle clubs versus the reality of criminal behavior associated with many members. For most motorcycle club members, extended incarceration presents significant challenges to maintaining their status and influence. The daily operations and power dynamics of club life continue in their absence, often leading to diminished roles upon release. New leaders emerge, alliances shift, and returning members must re-establish their positions within an altered hierarchy. Mercanti's experience defied this typical pattern. Throughout his incarceration, his status within the Mongols remained largely intact. Several factors contributed to this unusual circumstance. First, his role in establishing the club's Australian presence gave him a founder's authority that transcended temporary absence. Second, his experience and connections throughout Australia's criminal landscape represented assets too valuable to discard. Finally, his personal reputation, built over decades in the club world, commanded a respect that persisted despite his confinement. The prison environment itself presented both challenges and opportunities. Incarceration facilities often contain representatives from multiple motorcycle clubs and criminal organizations, creating complex social dynamics that mirror those of the outside world. Mercanti's reputation and connections likely enabled him to navigate this environment effectively, potentially even strengthening certain alliances during his confinement. Upon his release, he returned to the Mongols and resumed his position of influence. This seamless reintegration demonstrated both his personal resilience and the depth of respect he commanded within the organization. While prison time might have ended or severely diminished the club careers of lesser figures, for Mercanti, it became simply another chapter in his remarkable story. The fact that Mercanti's conviction for domestic violence did not significantly impact his standing within the club world speaks to the complex and sometimes contradictory value system that governs these organizations. While loyalty to brothers and respect for the club are paramount values, attitudes toward violence against women have traditionally been more ambiguous. That Mercanti maintained his position despite such a conviction illustrates both his exceptional personal standing and certain troubling aspects of traditional motorcycle club culture. Recent legal challenges, anti-consorting laws and their impact. More recently, Mercanti has faced a new set of challenges stemming from Australia's increasingly restrictive legislation targeting motorcycle clubs. In September 2023, Mercanti was fined $1,500 for wearing a Mongols club logo on a shirt and showing bikie tattoos when he was picking up dry cleaning for his mother in Northbridge. This came under new anti-consorting laws that banned outlaw motorcycle gang members from displaying club colors, patches and tattoos in public. The senior patched member of the outlaw motorcycle gang was also sentenced under anti-consorting laws after he was caught having lunch with a fellow club member in March 2023, a meeting which cost Mercanti $1,200 in court. He was warned by Magistrate Andrew Morn that he would face a jail term if he received further similar convictions. Mercanti was the first person in Western Australia to be issued a notice which forbid him from associating with 31 named Bikie members. This came 3 months after the introduction of new anti-consorting laws, which also banned outlaw motorcycle gang members from displaying club colours, patches and tattoos in public. Under these laws, a person can be jailed for up to 12 months and fined $12,000 for consorting contrary to a dispersal notice or displaying insignia of an identified organisation in a public place. When introducing the legislation in Western Australia, then Premier Mark McGowan said, "This government is serious about stopping organised crime and protecting the community from the intimidation and violence carried out by Bikie gangs. We will not tolerate outlaw motorcycle gangs or any organised criminal activity in Western Australia." These laws represent one of the most significant challenges to traditional motorcycle club operations in Australia's history. By criminalising the display of club insignia and restricting association between known members, they strike at the heart of club identity and function. Patches, colours and tattoos are not merely decorative elements in motorcycle club culture. They represent core aspects of personal and collective identity. Similarly, regular meetings between members form the foundation of club operations and brotherhood. For a figure like Mercanti, with decades invested in the club lifestyle, these restrictions present a profound challenge. His recent fines demonstrate the practical impact of these laws on daily life. Even mundane activities like picking up dry cleaning can result in legal consequences if club insignia are visible. More significantly, the restrictions on association threaten to isolate him from the brotherhood that has defined much of his adult life. The targeting of visible symbols like patches and tattoos represents a strategic approach by law enforcement to undermine club cohesion and public presence. By making the public display of membership illegal, these laws aim to push club activities further underground and disrupt the sense of identity and belonging that attracts many members. For older members like Mercanti, with club tattoos acquired long before such legislation, these laws create a particularly difficult situation. Their very bodies have become potential sources of criminal charges. The magistrate's warning that future violations could result in jail time indicates the seriousness with which authorities are approaching enforcement of these new regulations. For Mercanti, navigating this changed legal landscape requires adapting strategies developed over decades of club life to an environment increasingly hostile to traditional motorcycle club practices. Breaking the code of silence, the historic 2021 interview. In February 2021, the West Australian published what they described as the very first formal interview Troy Mercanti has ever given to the media. This unprecedented break from the traditional code of silence offered rare insights into the thinking of a man who had seen the motorcycle club world from multiple perspectives. Chief reporter Ben Harvey, who had spent years reporting on Mercanti and WA's Bikie clubs, ventured into the headquarters of the feared Mongols Motorcycle Club to conduct the interview. Harvey revealed how he broke through the Bikie code of silence to secure the interview with Mercanti and gained unprecedented access to the Mongols' inner sanctum. When asked about concerns for his personal safety following the interview, Harvey stated, "I suspect that when I'm lying in bed at night and I hear a Harley-Davidson go up the street, I might have cause to hide behind my better half and use her as protection, but it's not something that's going to absolutely have me wake up with cold sweats." This comment illustrates the lingering tension that surrounds interactions with figures like Mercanti, even in seemingly cooperative circumstances. The decision to grant an interview represented a significant departure from Mercanti's previous approach to media attention. Throughout most of his career, he had adhered strictly to the code of silence that governs motorcycle club members' interactions with the press. This unwritten rule, often summarized as "never explain, never complain," has traditionally helped clubs maintain operational security and mystique. Several factors likely contributed to his decision to break this long-standing practice. The increasing pressure from anti-consorting laws, may have motivated a desire to present a more nuanced public image of club life than the one portrayed by law enforcement and politicians. Additionally, as one of the elder statesmen of Australia's motorcycle club scene, he may have felt a responsibility to articulate aspects of the lifestyle and brotherhood that he believed were misunderstood by the general public. The interview itself covered various aspects of club life, though specific operational details remained undisclosed. Mercanti spoke about the brotherhood and camaraderie that form the foundation of motorcycle club membership, elements often overshadowed in media coverage focused exclusively on criminal activities. He addressed the increasing pressure from law enforcement and legislative changes targeting clubs, expressing frustration at what he perceived as disproportionate attention compared to other forms of organized crime. Perhaps most significantly, he offered insights into the evolution of Australia's motorcycle club scene over the decades of his involvement. Having witnessed the transformation from locally focused groups primarily united by a love of motorcycles and lifestyle to more sophisticated organizations with national and international connections, his perspective provided a valuable historical record of this cultural shift. The breaking of the code of silence represented not just a personal decision, but a potential shift in how motorcycle clubs engage with media and the broader public. As traditional club operations become increasingly difficult under new legislative frameworks, more strategic engagement with public perception might represent an adaptive response. Mercanti's unprecedented interview may signal the beginning of a more sophisticated approach to public relations by clubs traditionally defined by their secrecy. The parallel path, Justin Mooch Delerto.
This is Justin Delerto, aka Mooch. I was a chapter president of the Mongols Motorcycle Club and a member of the Vagos Motorcycle Club. This is how crime works. Motorcycle clubs are pretty adamant to not be called gangs. We all came together for the love of motorcycles. The downside is the motorcycle clubs keep shooting each other. We're going to keep getting labeled as gangs and be on, watch lists. And the Mongols have a saying that's respect few, fear none. They don't have a lot of respect for the other clubs and they don't fear anybody.
While Troy Mercanti's notorious journey through Australia's motorcycle club hierarchy made him a legend down under, his reputation in international biker circles paralleled that of Justin Mooch Delerto, another influential figure who commanded similar respect within his own brotherhood on American soil. Delerto served as a chapter president of the Mongols Motorcycle Club for 15 years in Oregon, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. He also influenced the founding of one of the largest Australian chapters, which served as a base for expansion into Asia. This connection creates an interesting parallel with Mercanti, both men having played significant roles in the Mongols' international expansion. Like Mercanti, Delerto has shared insights into the inner workings of the club, discussing initiation, prospecting, getting a patch, and brotherhood within the organization. He has also spoken about the rivalries with other clubs, like the Hells Angels and the Outlaws, as well as the alignment with the Pagans. Delerto has since left the club life behind and become a social worker. He's the author of The Ride of My Life and hosts the podcast Mondays with Mooch. This transition to a public-facing role, offering insights into club life mirrors Mercanti's own rare step into the public spotlight through his interview with the West Australian. The parallels between these two men's journeys offer interesting insights into how the motorcycle club world operates across different continents. Despite the vast geographical distance separating their primary spheres of influence, both rose to positions of significant authority within the same organization. Both eventually broke the traditional code of silence to share aspects of their experiences with the public, and both represented the increasing internationalization of what had once been primarily local or national organizations. Delereto's post-club career as a social worker and public commentator on motorcycle club culture represents a path that few former high-ranking members take. His willingness to discuss his experiences has provided valuable insights into the internal operations, values, and evolution of modern motorcycle clubs. While Mercanti remains active in the club world despite increasing legal restrictions, Delereto's transition to civilian life offers a different model for how influential members might eventually find roles outside the club structure. Their stories also reflect the evolving nature of motorcycle club culture in the 21st century. The traditions and practices established in post-World War II America have spread globally, adapting to local conditions while maintaining core elements of identity and structure. Figures like Mercanti and Delerto served as bridges between these different cultural contexts, helping translate the Mongols' American origins into forms that resonated with Australian members. Despite these similarities, important differences distinguish their journeys. Delereto's club career remained within the Mongols' organization, without the dramatic transitions between rival clubs that characterized Mercanti's path. This more traditional loyalty to a single club stands in stark contrast to Mercanti's unprecedented movement between organizations. Additionally, Delereto's complete exit from club life represents a clean break with his past, while Mercanti continues to navigate the increasingly restricted space available for active club members in Australia. A new era for motorcycle clubs, global expansion and local identity. Mercanti's story reflects the increasingly global nature of motorcycle clubs in the 21st century. While organizations like the Mongols began with specific ethnic and geographical identities, international expansion has created a more complex network of chapters, united by shared symbols and traditions rather than common backgrounds. The Mongols' evolution from a predominantly Hispanic club in Southern California to an international organization with significant presence in Australia demonstrates how motorcycle club culture has transcended its original contexts. Mercanti's role in bringing the Mongols to prominence in Australia demonstrates how a club founded by Hispanic riders in California could eventually incorporate members from entirely different cultural backgrounds. This globalization process has not been without tensions and adaptations. The traditions, rituals, and organizational structures developed in one cultural context must be translated, sometimes literally, to work effectively in another. Leadership figures like Mercanti play crucial roles in this translation process, helping establish how international club principles apply to local conditions. The expansion of American-founded clubs like the Mongols into Australia also reflects shifts in the global criminal landscape. Traditional barriers of distance and jurisdiction have become increasingly porous in an interconnected world. For organizations involved in various forms of illegal activity, international connections provide access to new markets, supply chains, and safe havens from law enforcement pressure. The concept of the 1%er motorcycle club, derived from the American Motorcyclist Association's purported statement that 99% of motorcyclists were law-abiding citizens, has spread globally despite its specifically American origins. Clubs in Australia, Europe, Asia, and beyond have adopted not just the symbols, but the hierarchical structures, rules, and traditions established by American clubs in the mid-20th century. Technology has played a significant role in this internationalization process. Modern communication tools allow for coordination between chapters separated by vast distances, enabling a level of organizational cohesion impossible in earlier eras. Similarly, international travel has become more accessible, allowing face-to-face meetings between members from different countries and facilitating the transfer of knowledge, traditions, and operational methods. At the same time, this internationalization has prompted coordinated responses from law enforcement agencies around the world. The anti-consorting laws that have recently impacted Mercanti's daily life represent just one example of how governments have adapted their approaches to target the transnational nature of modern motorcycle clubs. Information sharing between police forces, international operations, and harmonized legislative approaches have all become more common as authorities attempt to counter the global reach of these organizations. These changes have forced motorcycle clubs to evolve their operational methods, organizational structures, and recruitment approaches. Traditional public displays of membership through colors and group rides have given way in many jurisdictions to more discreet signifiers and gatherings. The emphasis on physical clubhouses has shifted in some areas toward more mobile and temporary meeting arrangements. Recruitment increasingly happens through personal networks rather than public presence. For elder figures like Mercanti, who came of age during a period when motorcycle clubs operated with relative freedom to display their colors and identity publicly, this new era represents a profound shift in club culture. Navigating these changes while maintaining the core values and traditions that define motorcycle club identity presents one of the most significant challenges facing the current generation of club leadership. A legacy of defiance and adaptation. What makes Mercanti's story particularly compelling is his ability to not just survive, but thrive after club transitions that would have meant death for less influential bikers. This speaks to a combination of personal charisma, strategic alliance building, and the kind of fearsome reputation that makes even enemies think twice about challenging him directly. In a world where loyalty to a single club is normally paramount, Mercanti rewrote the rules without paying the ultimate price. His journey through Australia's motorcycle club landscape represents one of the most unusual career paths in the history of these organizations. From his beginnings with the Club de Rose, through his time with the Coffin Cheaters, and finally to his role in establishing the Mongols' Australian presence, he has demonstrated an exceptional ability to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining his core identity as a clubman. The legal challenges he currently faces reflect broader societal shifts in how motorcycle clubs are perceived and regulated. Anti-consorting laws targeting visible manifestations of club membership, patches, colours and gatherings strike at traditions that have defined these organisations for generations. How Mercanti and others like him adapt to these challenges will shape the future evolution of motorcycle club culture in Australia and beyond. Mercanti's story also illuminates the changing nature of loyalty and identity within motorcycle club culture. While traditional understandings emphasized lifelong commitment to a single organization, his career suggests the emergence of more fluid conceptions of allegiance based on personal relationships, strategic interests, and individual reputation. This shift, while still exceptional rather than normative, may point toward future evolutions in how motorcycle clubs define membership and belonging. The international expansion of clubs like the Mongols, facilitated by figures like Mercanti, has created global networks that transcend the local origins of motorcycle club culture. These networks enable new forms of cooperation, resource sharing, and knowledge transfer that strengthen organizations against external pressures from law enforcement and rival groups. At the same time, this internationalization creates challenges of cultural translation and local adaptation that require skillful navigation by leaders with Mercanti's experience and influence. As he enters his mid-50s, Mercanti stands as both a link to the traditional world of motorcycle clubs and a harbinger of how these organizations are evolving in response to 21st century pressures and opportunities. His unprecedented interview with the West Australian suggests a recognition that even the most sacred traditions of the club world, like the Code of Silence, may need reconsideration in a changing landscape. Whether viewed as a folk hero or a cautionary tale, Troy Mercanti's impact on Australia's motorcycle club culture is undeniable. His story provides a window into a world often shrouded in secrecy and misinformation, revealing the complex interplay of loyalty, power, and personal ambition that drives this distinctive subculture. As law enforcement pressure and legislative restrictions continue to mount, figures like Mercanti face the challenge of preserving the essence of motorcycle club life while adapting to a rapidly changing environment. The legend of Troy Mercanti, the man who crossed boundaries thought inviolable and survived to tell the tale, will likely endure as long as motorcycle clubs themselves. In a culture built on unwavering loyalty, his exceptional journey stands as testament to how the most sacred rules sometimes bend for those with sufficient courage, charisma, and cunning to challenge them. Whatever the future holds for Australia's motorcycle clubs, Mercanti's place in their history is already secure. The man who rewrote the rules and lived to wear the patch of yet another brotherhood.